Welcome back. If there was ever a Monday crying out for strategic advice, this is it. The strategists have assembled in their usual spots with their usual political leanings. Let's get them started. Greg McEachern is with Proof Strategies, Kate Harrison with Summa Strategies, Carl Belanger, president of Douglas Global Foundation, and Greg Weston is with the Earnscliffe Strategy Group. I kind of introduced that one really quickly. They were scanning over.
Are you excited, Tony?
Let's get right to it.
What are we talking about today?
Okay, well, I'll go to you first because, you got your finger on the pulse. I'm just wondering if there's a heart-pounding panic going on in the PMO these days.
Well, there's a big feeling that this is Andrew Scheer's fault. If he was doing a better job as leader of the opposition, the government wouldn't have to be both government and opposition.
Gotcha. That's a good line, actually.
Yeah, nice try. But I think what that kind of symbolizes is, for this government, the biggest issues that they've had to deal with that have not been Trump-related have been self-inflicted. And I think that's a big challenge. I think this is probably a point where, from what I'm hearing from Liberal MPs, is they kind of distill it down to communications. This government does not have a Andrew McDougall, Peter Donolo, Scott Reid kind of communicator. They've got some very senior people, but through vacancies, whatever else it is, I don't know, but I'm hearing from a lot of Liberal MPs that, they hear one of the reporters from the Globe and Mail broke the story saying that it was 12 hours before he got a call back, things like that. Now, you've got a cabinet minister, the call is coming from inside the House. You've got a cabinet minister who in the article comes off very positively. So whether there's an involvement there by someone close to the cabinet minister or someone else, I think that adds to the difficulty with this situation. But again, it's an election year, and I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on rapid response.
You know what struck me today, Kate? I don't know what struck you. Here's Justin Trudeau standing there, and he's explaining what went on, saying, oh, I've talked to her twice, and we've agreed that I did this. I directed you to do it your way, whatever you want. I still don't understand why he won't let her say that.
Yeah, and it's also a dramatic departure from what he said last week, which is that, there's really nothing to see here. And I take Greg's point that this is partially a communications problem, but to me, it's very indicative of how this government behaves and treats issues like this in general. Even today, the Prime Minister said there's a lot of people talking about this issue, so that's why we welcome the Ethics Commissioner investigation. Really? It's because a lot of people are talking about it. How about the fact that it's absolutely the right thing to do? And you probably should have been openly asking for this to begin with. So I think, to me, it's that flippant attitude that they are above these allegations. That's what's going to really hurt them down the road.
It's always the drip, 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 isn't it? Yes. Like, if you reveal all, then it goes away in one big bad news day, but a new day, new little drip comes down, and
that's because they have something to hide, and they're trying to hide it, and not very well. There's been a complete lack of transparency from day one on this file. From when they brought this so-called deferred prosecution agreement clause in the criminal code through a budget bill. It didn't make no sense. That was the first red flag, and it kept going and going until it blew up in their face just last week. And there is a case to be made, a political case to be made about making those agreements available and making sure that SNC-Lavalin and all the jobs that are going along with it are protected. But they're not making that case. They're trying to, manage with denials, and it's not working.
Greg, this is crisis communications, but are they failing to make the grade? Is it 101 fail?
Well, Don, I think the jam they're in is that the person who could answer all these questions isn't talking. And you kind of have to go back and wonder, everybody's kind of looking at the legalities of solicitor-client privilege and all these technical things. But let's go back to the day that Judy Wilson-Raybould was demoted in cabinet and released that extraordinary 5-page diatribe, which she had to know was going to cause problems for her own government and for her own prime minister, and may explain, in fact, some of the things that are going on now is that she's unpredictable. When we talk about things coming out in a drip, 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 she could stop that by going out and just saying what happened, because it's a whole lot different in someone saying that they were pressured into doing something or urged to do something, and somebody coming along and saying, if you don't do this, you're going to be fired.
You know, the one thing that struck me is that the Prime Minister has this news availability and all these cabinet ministers and MPs are behind him. And Jody Wilson-Raybould is from that city, but part of the town. She doesn't show up on the weekend or today. So I'm wondering, can she stay in cabinet? Do you think that this is a case where she has to be shuffled out entirely?
Well, I don't know if the answer is clear on that. I think the Prime Minister's tried to send a message today where that there were two conversations and the fact that she is presently in cabinet. Speculation. But if I'm new to politics and I open up a Pandora's box like this, am I aware of all the implications? I'm a former political staffer. I advised cabinet ministers. You were paid for your advice. You gave vigorous advice. I wonder if someone's pressure is somebody else's due diligence. I remember having a conversation with one of my ministers where I argued something very vigorously to the point where they were getting a little upset with me. And I said, look, when the door opens, there'll be no daylight between us, or I go somewhere else. And I think that's the way it should be for cabinet ministers. If she does indeed have a problem, then she shouldn't be in cabinet. I would have a tough time as a member of cabinet to sit next to her if I thought there was a direct line to the Globe and Mail. One other thing I think that's important to keep in mind, this is playing very differently in Quebec. It's very much about the jobs, and I think sometimes we do a disservice where we don't take in, it's very much a ROC, a rest of Canada point of view, but they're very much in Quebec. You see the pundits, you see the columnists, it's about the jobs. So that would be a pressure not only on Justin Trudeau, but as we've seen, Andrew Scheer, because everyone is trying to find a path through Quebec for 2019.
But if this is, I was just going to add really quickly, if this is a matter of a genuine miscommunication, and if the Prime Minister's office has as big an issue as they do with these comments being made, invite the ethics committee to investigate, and if there's nothing to hide, have her speak up and say so. That's why,
there's also two court cases that I think we've kind of forgotten. There's the one against SNC-Lavalin, and then there's the court case where they're trying to argue that the public prosecution should give them a second chance. So there are other, besides the ethics, which Commissioner, which I welcome, because I don't know. Guess what? I think a parliamentary committee might be political and partisan in an election year. I think the ethics commissioner, and I agree with you. If I was the Prime Minister, I would have welcomed that. I think he did, but perhaps he could have called for it.
Can she stay in?
She's in now.
Yeah, he says she's got confidence.
If I were her, I would just stay. Absolutely. Another vote of confidence. So she's going to hang around. Because if she lacked the political judgment, as we've seen from the whisper campaign that's been going on against her, if she's not competent, if she's stubborn, if she's all these things, why did he keep her in cabinet? Well, maybe to protect his own bottom, and to cover his tracks. I don't know. But there's certainly some questions here.
Greg?
I think one question that has to be asked here is if, in fact, she was pressured to a point to do something wrong, why did she not resign from cabinet? That would have been the proper thing to do on the spot and walk out. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's somewhere in between. The problem is we need facts to go with this story. And until that happens, she is just the decision I'm sure that the Prime Minister is having every night is, do I want a loose cannon rolling around the deck or do I throw it onto the dock?
But it's something you pointed out to me when we're getting ready. This SNC's got a new headquarters in London. It's got 8,700 jobs here. If the company starts running into roadblocks here, the jobs go overseas? I don't know.
You have to remember that the context of this thing is the government being concerned about this case. This court case has been on for 10 years. And what the Justice Department wants to do is to ban them from doing any federal work in Canada for 10 years. This is one of the biggest single employers, private sector employers in the country. 9,000 jobs, most of them in Quebec. And so is the government right to be concerned about it? You bet. And certainly in Quebec.
Last word to you on this. Where do you think how big is this deal? How much has Andrew Scheer got the traction to take them all the way to Election Day, or is this going to lose steam pretty quickly?
It has been galvanizing for the opposition. I think in isolation, this alone, no, this is not going to be what people think of as the ballot box.
This doesn't decide voting patterns.
Not alone, but then we had the revelation today in the Mark Norman trial that, there may be a connection to the Prime Minister's office looking to interfere. In that case, that's a pattern, and that's when it becomes a problem. So I think if there's this continued slow bleed of stories which suggest ethical questions about this government and the narrative is on ethics, that's where the opposition has a chance to win.
I only got 2 minutes. I got to bring another quick story up. Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister, who's been living in Costa Rica for many weeks a year at his vacation hut, his office starts tweeting out to freezing Manitobans about, stay warm, fellow Manitobans. Do you like the snow, Manitobans? He's in Costa Rica. Oh, there we got a couple of these. But he's sitting in Costa Rica. These are done by staffers in his office.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't that really peeve people off, Kate? I mean, is that a big no-no if you're a premier? You don't tweet from Costa Rica about snow?
I think he just can't, he tries to leave Winnipeg, they pull him back in. Costa Rica, I don't understand this. It's the major thing that he has to deal with is this perception that he's never there. I don't know why you would draw attention to that and the plight of your fellow people.
Yeah, I think I give every politician the right to take a vacation. The problem is most average Canadians do not have a winter home in Costa Rica. It's caused him problems before, and it seems to be an annual occurrence that it comes up. It's not what I'd be wanted to be reminded of if I was in Winnipeg or Ottawa tomorrow, for example.
When you're in your Aruba mansion down there, Carl, do you tweet about how miserable the weather is up here?
This is the thing, right? He's not there for a couple of weeks. He spent months after months there, and it's happening year after year. Now, I understand that was part of the deal for him taking that job with his family. But oh boy, if I'm a Manitoba voter right now and I'm shoveling all that snow, I'm not happy.
Don't tweet how miserable the weather is back home when you're trying to decide which sunscreen to put on. Is that the rule here?
I know how many people I advise in a day, just stay away from Twitter. Seriously. Anybody who's in the South and I'm not there, I don't like to start. And then he sort of sends the Twitter equivalent of let them eat ice. Come on, seriously.
Oh, man. Okay, that's good enough. That was a great discussion. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.